What's up, guys? It's Dan, back with another video. Hey guys, I feel like I'm a YouTuber now, so it's gotten to my head. My name's Dan, if we haven't met yet. I'm coming to you guys from my own house, from my own crib, filming this teaching video. I hope this video finds you guys healthy. I hope you guys are finding things to do in the midst of this time. Also, I want you guys to know that this might be obvious, but this is all of our first time dealing with the coronavirus, right? So this is your first time. You've never been through something like this before, but your teachers have never been through something like this before, and your parents have never been through anything like this before, and your dog has never been through this before. Just think about that. But the point is, no one really knows what they're doing. So I hope that we can all show each other a little bit of grace in that we're all just trying to figure it out as we go, and trusting in each other, and trusting in what God's doing. So hope we can show each other a little grace. Me and Matt want you guys to know that we all at Harbor Cove are praying for you guys. And if there's anything that we can do to help you or your family, please let us know. That's what we want to be about in this time. We want to be the church. A couple things for you guys to know. First thing, every Wednesday, we're releasing a video at 11 a.m. called But First Coffee. We're going to release this video on Instagram and YouTube. Check out our first one that we did last Thursday. But in the future, every Wednesday at 11 a.m., But First Coffee. It's kind of like a talk show vibe with some of us, where we talk about current things like the coronavirus. We'll play interactive games that you can actually join in on. We'll share our favorite memes from the week. And you'll actually have a chance to win prizes that we will personally mail to your house. So you want to tune in to But First Coffee every Wednesday. And the other thing is tune into this. Sundays at 11 a.m. We'll be posting on Instagram and YouTube our teaching videos that we would normally do on Sunday mornings at church. Our other hope in getting you connected is that you stay connected with your small group in this time. If you don't have a small group, please DM either the Instagram or the Facebook for Harbor Cove Youth, and we'll get you connected. But our hope is that this is a time where you can use FaceTime, Zoom calls, and group messaging to actually get more connected with your small group. And our hope is actually that after watching messages like these on Sundays, that you can actually talk about them with some of the questions we give you with your small group. And so your small group leaders will have some questions where you guys can actually process what you're watching in this video. And finally, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we're going to have one of you take over the Harbor Cove Youth Instagram. Give us a little window into what your daily life looks like during the coronavirus. Maybe it's you going on some epic adventure to the grocery store. Maybe it's you doing some insane trick shot in your stairwell of your house. Whatever it may be, we want to see what you guys are doing. If you want to take over the Instagram, DM the Instagram Harbor Cove Youth, and we'll get you plugged in. So, plenty of ways for all of us to stay connected in this time and to continue to be the church family. And with that, check out this video. So like you guys just saw in the video, we're kicking off an online series today that we're calling Habits. And this series is all about, in this time with so many unknowns, how do we still build good habits into our lives? That's the question we're asking. In a time where everything is up in the air, how can we still add some structure to our lives that can help us grow and ultimately help us grow closer to God? And today, we want to give a little bit of an intro into what we mean by having good habits. And we want to talk about an idea today that our small routines actually make a big difference. Our small routines make a big difference. But before we talk about habits, I want to talk about sandcastles. That's right, guys. Story time with Dan. When me and my two brothers were younger, we used to love going to the beach. We used to go out with our family to ocean shores, and we would just do it all. We would fly kites, we would go to the taffy store. We would be weirdly obsessed with making like a tunnel under giant logs on the beach. That was like our daily goal, was like, build a tunnel. We don't really know why, but we were really proud of ourselves. But our most favorite thing to do on the beach was to build sandcastles. And every time we went out to the beach as a family, it was all about having the next biggest sandcastle bucket thingy. I'll never forget this one time we were on vacation with our cousins, and we were staying on the super nice beach, super nice sand. And one day we wanted to build a massive sandcastle. And we had this giant team cousin effort to build a massive sandcastle. I mean, like, Walt Disney would be intimidated by what we put together. I mean, just the massive proportions of this thing. You would think that Tinkerbell would be like ziplining into our little sandcastle. I mean, it was epic. People, we had moats with a drawbridge. Yeah, we were legit, okay? But there was something we lost sight of. You see, we were building this and we were starting to get done with the sandcastle. By the end of the day, we were so excited to show all the adults. But what we didn't realize is, in getting so excited about how cool our sandcastle was, we were building it so close to the water. It turned out that before we even had a chance to usher the parents down to come look at our creation, the ocean tide came and literally overtook our sandcastle. All of our dreams washed away into the big blue ocean. But that story, as funny as it seems, actually makes me think of a story that we read in the Bible. I'm going to grab my Bible and I want to read from Matthew chapter 7, verses 24 through 27. So if you have a Bible or Bible app, you can pull it up. But you'll actually read the verses down below as well, so you can read those and follow along. So these verses are Jesus' words to people. He says this. Jesus says, "Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house. Yet it did not fall because it had its foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash." And I just think about this story because I think this story kind of reminds me of the situation we're actually in right now. I mean, you think about it, you see this visual of a house kind of being just washed away by the storm. And I was just thinking about that the other day, being like, man, that's kind of how life feels like right now, doesn't it? Like everything we used to know is just gone. Like just washed away like my little kid's sandcastle. Maybe for you, what's being washed away for you is things like school, sports, friends, musicals, concerts. I mean, it's truly strange. Everything that's normal for us, everything that we spend our weeks and years working towards, things like 8th grade celebrations, senior celebrations, are gone. It is so strange. It makes me think about how we're kind of in a storm right now in life, right? Everything's kind of just all shaken around. But it's interesting how in the story and throughout the Bible, Jesus talks about how storms can come in our lives, metaphorical storms, and they can expose what our lives are truly built on, what our foundations are built on. So the question I have for you guys to start is, what's your life built on? Like, what's your foundation? What's most important to you in life? See, in the story, Jesus gives us two options, right? He says, if we have our lives focused on him, on Jesus, that is to have our house built on the solid rock. But to have our lives focused on things that don't really matter, selfish desires that we want just for ourselves, that is to have our house or our lives built on the sand. Here's a little life hack into figuring out whether or not your life, your house, might be built on the sand. It's asking yourself the question, is what my life is built on, can it be taken away by a storm? What I mean by that is, if the most important thing to you can be taken away by something like the coronavirus or something else in life, maybe your house is built on the sand. I mean, maybe for you, it's your status as an athlete, right? Maybe that's the most important thing to you. Or maybe it's your popularity and image and approval by your friends in school. Or maybe it's the respect you get from people by being the smartest person in the room, right? All these things, some of them can be really good. All these things though, if that's the most important thing to us, that would be building our house on the sand, building our house and our life on something that isn't most important, that can actually be taken away from us. Jesus in this story is telling us to build our lives on the rock, to build our lives on a relationship with God that is built to last, that's something we can actually trust and depend on. You see, this is where the power of habits comes into play. Because you go, okay, Dan, build my house upon the rock. That seems a little like abstract. I don't really know what that looks like. But that's why we're talking about habits in this series. Because habits can actually help us build our lives on a relationship with God that will never fade away. It's in this time where we can look at our foundation, how we've built our life, and we might be able to notice a little easier our good habits and our bad habits. For me, well, this isn't really related, but one of my worst habits is flossing. And no, I don't mean like the because I don't even know how to do that. So that can't be a bad habit even if I wanted to, because I don't know how to do that thing. Anyways, my worst habit is I never floss. My least favorite day of the year is walking like head down into the dentist's office. Why? Not because I'm afraid of all the, like equipment they're gonna put in my mouth. It's because I am so afraid of that conversation at the very end. You're about to go, yes, I have no cavities, I'm all good, and I'm about to like get out of the chair. And the dentist goes, so how often do you floss? And you try to make up your own like version of, no, I don't. I am such a bad flosser, and I have to sit there and hear the dentist say, well, if you don't floss, you're gonna get cavities and all your teeth are gonna fall out. And I have to say, yeah, I know, I'm 24 and you definitely have been telling me that since I was 4, and I just haven't made that a habit. So that is a habit I wish I had. But that's something that maybe doesn't matter as much. But maybe for you in this time, you're noticing habits that you have that are like, ooh, those aren't too good. Like maybe for you, you've noticed that once school has gone out, your sleep schedule has just been whack, like backwards. And you're like, man, I need to get in a better habit. Or maybe for you, you've noticed in this time since being out of school, you are just on your phone or playing video games so much so that you're not even present with your own family that's locked in the same house with you. And you wish you could be more present. Or maybe for you, as you're stuck with your family, you realize, oh my gosh, I get angry really easily at people. And you say, man, I'm almost in a bad habit of getting just so angry. Or maybe for you, you've noticed that it's really easy for you to kind of just sit around as your family does all the chores around the house and you don't really help. And you're kind of in a bad habit of just being lazy. Whatever it may be, In times like this is when sometimes our bad habits will come to the surface and you'll come face to face with them and go, ooh, I need to make a change. Or maybe for you, this is a time where you notice some good habits that you have that you want to. For example, for me, there are actually two really small things, two small habits that I do every morning that are so helpful for me. And you're gonna go, dude, duh, like everyone does that. Okay, but they're really helpful for me. The first thing is I wake up every morning and I take a shower. Some people, you might be a night shower person. You like the long shower. You plug in your Bluetooth speaker and you get your vibes. That's awesome. But when I wake up in the morning, I need to get like refreshed and like woken up in the shower, and that like clicks me up, being like, okay, time to go. And the other thing I do every morning is I make it a point to make my bed like nicely, and I make sure my room's kind of clean too. And that kind of habit for me, along with the shower, kind of tells my brain, okay, dude, it's time to start the day. You have ownership in the day and you want to be organized today. And something like making my bed actually is a huge help. It's a small habit, but it really helps me just to kind of start my day off right. Those are two small habits for me that some of you are like, okay, duh, dude, we all do that. But maybe for you, it's something like you really miss having sports and PE. And it's as simple as waking up every morning and just setting a time, being like, at 9 a.m. every morning, I'm gonna go on a walk in my neighborhood for 30 minutes and just start my day off right. Or maybe for you, you really miss being with your friends and you just have to set up regular FaceTime calls with all your buddies. That's what I've had to do. In fact, the people who I live with, my parents and my brothers, are really annoyed with all my FaceTime calls, like walking through the house. But maybe that's what it is for you. I want you guys to think just for a moment, what is one bad habit that you may have noticed in this time that you want to let go of? And what's one good habit that you either want to keep doing or add into your life in this time? What's one bad habit you want to let go of, and one good habit that you want to do? In this series, these next couple weeks, we're going to be talking about a kind of habit that we call spiritual disciplines. Now, before you go, oh my gosh, that sounds so boring. You said discipline, like I want to sleep in, like not discipline. Like before you say that, hear me out. Spiritual disciplines are actually some of the most life-changing, growing things that you can ever experience. When we say spiritual disciplines, we mean practices, spiritual practices that Christians have been using for thousands of years to help them grow closer to God. This includes things like prayer, reading the Bible, helping people by serving. It includes things like working on your attitude, your work ethic, and so much more. And we're going to be talking about one of those topics each week, these next couple weeks. Throughout the course of history, Christians have used spiritual disciplines as a way to get closer to God, as a way to build their life on a solid rock, a relationship with God that is built to last, that can withstand the storms of life. And here's the thing I want you to know about habits. Whether it's making your bed every morning or reading your Bible, here's what I want you to know. It's the small routines that make the big difference. Our small routines make a big difference. If you get nothing else out of this video, remember that. Our small routines make a big difference. For example, when I was making my bed every single morning, it's not that every morning I was solving all of my life problems in that 2 minutes of making my bed, right? It was a little act. But what I was doing in making my bed was helping myself become organized and have ownership over my day. So it seemed like such a small little task like making my bed actually changed my days, changed my weeks, where I began to have more ownership and focus in my day simply by making my bed. Another example for me of a habit or a spiritual discipline that I do every morning is called a devotional time. And if you're unfamiliar with that, basically what it is every morning I have this little book I look at, and it has a couple verses from the Bible that I read. And then after the verses, it has someone's thoughts about the verses and how they kind of just apply to the day. And what I do is I just take a little bit of time reading that, praying about it, and asking God, man, God, what do you have for my day? What do you want me to know today? What do you want me to do? Sometimes it only takes 10, 15 minutes. And so in those times every morning, it's not that I'm like, man, I'm experiencing all this amazing stuff about God and my life has changed in 10 minutes. No, that's not what happens, right? It's only 10 minutes. But what does happen after doing that 10 minutes every single morning, I become more and more aware of God's presence in my life. And I become more and more willing to trust God and how He wants to use me as a part of His plan. So what seemed to be just such a small routine actually made a big difference in my life. Small routine, big difference. If you can remember the video we watched at the beginning of this, it had the shot of all the small dominoes that were lined up. Just tons of small ones that were hitting each other. Finally, the dominoes started to get a little bit bigger and bigger and bigger until these little small dominoes, after a while, were knocking over these massive sized dominoes. And maybe you kind of caught on to what that was portraying at the beginning. But what that's supposed to show is those dominoes are our habits, our daily routines. So each little small daily routine might seem so small and minuscule, but after enough times of doing it, right, it starts to compound, and now we actually start to see a big difference in our lives. So it's like with my devotional that I read every morning, right? It seems like such a small thing. What is 10 minutes gonna do? Little small dominoes hitting each other. Well, then after a while, I started to actually notice God in my life. I started to be more thankful for what God is doing. I started to be more an active participant in God's plan in my life. So now these little small dominoes started to get big, and I started to actually see a big difference just with 10 minutes a day. My challenge for you right now is to begin thinking about what's one spiritual discipline or spiritual habit that you might want to add to your life in this time. I mean, maybe it's something like prayer. Maybe it's something like reading your Bible, serving people, meeting together in your small group, reading a devotional every morning. Just know that the next couple of weeks we'll be covering some of these topics, but I want to just get you guys thinking about what's one area, one spiritual discipline you're a little bit more interested in. One thing that you know, man, I want to add that to my life as a habit these next couple of weeks. Ask yourself, what is one small habit I can start now that will help me grow closer to God in big ways in the long run? Take it easy, fam. We love you. Peace.